In this video, we're talking to Return to Monkey Island animator Tamsin Nunley about how she got into games. Nice. Oh, Tamsin, tell me, what is your training?
I kind of came at animation in a sort of a roundabout way, right? The first time I remember actually doing proper animation was at college. Someone had an Amiga, and I remember sitting at this Amiga and doing this like pixel by pixel kind of thing of some sort of alien creature doing something. It's long ago lost. I wish I could see it again. And just thinking, yeah, I like this, and doing a bit of plasticine stuff there. It's all very bodged. And then I picked my university course, which was in Portsmouth. It was an illustration course, but the good thing about it for me was it was really flexible. And they were basically like, you can do what you want as long as you can talk about it and justify it afterwards. Because some courses, like for instance, like at the time, a Bournemouth illustration course was very rigid. It was like super, just like you will be drawing, like it or lump it. I went for this sort of flexible one and ended up doing animation, probably quite a bad animation for my final project, which was on a Mac G4, I think. After that, I went to London Animation Studios, which is now Central St Martin's, for a 6-month animation course, which is what introduced me to 3D. And my initial response to that was just to bang my head against the desk and cry, because suddenly all the stuff I could do in 2D just became like there was this learning curve of 3D software that just floored me for about 4 months, and I just felt like I had this massive uphill struggle, and maybe I had made the wrong decision. And then something clicked, and I was like, okay, this is now becoming a tool I can use to my advantage rather than something that's stopping me actually doing what I would normally do. That was my animation training.
Cool. So how did you get into games?
I went off to work with a musician in a very small office in London for a while. His company was his thing to keep him busy. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this because he's quite open about it anyway, but basically his doctor said, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. So I'm going to do some constructive stuff. So we had this kind of fledgling 3D company. I don't think neither of us really knew what we were doing, to be honest. We were just pitching stuff to people in Soho and getting rejected all the time. It was a great first job, but it wasn't really going anywhere after 3 years. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll give the games industry a go, because I remember a guy had come in to LAS from EA and he was all like very brash and American, and he was like, we need this and you'll do that, and I was like, okay, you sound bossy, but I'm interested, because harking back to that Tomytronic, I was like, oh, I quite like the idea of doing this. I left my job in the cupboard in Soho, and I was like, send out my showreel, and I thought it was going to be a doddle. And it was like the worst 6 months of my life trying to find a job in games, even back then, because the problem I was having wasn't bad animation, although by today's standards, my showreel wouldn't cut it. It's amazing the stuff you see now. But it was just a lack of prior experience in games, and I think I was in this kind of catch-22 of, to get my first job in games, I need already to have worked in games. So it was really frustrating for a while. But in the end, a friend of a friend said, oh, there's something going at Lionhead. By this time I was in despair, and I was like, if I can't get into some company in Brighton that no one's ever heard of, etc., what are my chances of getting into Lionhead? So I came so close not to sending my stuff, but I did send it. And what happened was, the animation lead, it was for black and white too, right? And so the animation lead there, he came from a like commercial animation background as well, so he put less store by have they got experience in games, do they play a lot of games, and more by what's the animation like.
He understood that your knowledge could be transferable.
Yeah, and really it's not that difficult. I think if you're interested in what you're doing and the quality of what you're doing, I think most people like naturally are going to become interested in the game that they're working on, whether they're from a games background or not. But as I'm sure Chalky, I think the main thing you very quickly learn about games animation is the need to compress things and make things very reactive. and all you've learnt about like anticipation in that sort of needs to be like, if you press a button, this thing has to happen. That person has to be punched. You can't have a 2-second wind up. It has to go bam. So you do learn a few tricks about just compressing that kind of feeling and getting some oomph into things within a shorter time. But I remember one of my first animations there. It was probably in the first couple of months. It was like a paired animation, which I hadn't really done any paired animation before to speak of. And I remember starting to do this thing, and it just wasn't gelling. Sometimes when you're animating, you just keep adding keys when something's not working. You're like, oh, I just change this, change that. And this went on, and it just still wasn't working. And so in the end, I think I just binged the whole thing and started again and planned it out more carefully. I think I learned very quickly just how important posing stuff is in that situation. And so in the end, I got a good animation out of it. It's still on my 3D show reel, and I was really pleased. But I got dragged into the office because this whole process had taken something like 2 or 3 weeks for one animation. And they were like, look, you've really got to go quicker than this. I was like, oh, no one really told me that. So that was like a learning experience of just like doubly learning more about paired animation, but also about the time scale you're expected to work in.
What sort of time scale should it have been?
I think you could reasonably expect something of that complexity to take the best part of a week. It was probably over 2 weeks. I don't know, my memory's terrible. Whatever, it was longer than it needed to be. So that was my kind of like baptism of fire of keep hammering out that stuff.
Maybe not so precise and a bit faster.
Working in games makes you really good at editing animation. At any time you can probably look at an animation and be like, shorten that. What's the message? Let's just spam. But it was quite a complex sequence, which accumulates in someone getting a sword in the crotch. I've got a soft spot for that animation.
So, there you go. Sometimes your path is not always as straightforward as you might think. Yeah, keep on at it. Want to know how Tamsin gets inspired? Click here.